Jack Thompson gripped the steering wheel of his beat-up pickup truck, the engine growling as he maneuvered down the winding dirt road. The air was thick with the scent of pine needles and damp earth, carried on a cool breeze that rustled the towering trees. In the distance, the mountains stood like silent sentinels, their jagged peaks catching the last rays of a fiery orange sunset. It was a breathtaking sight, but Jack's mind was elsewhere, fixed on the weight of the world pressing down on his broad shoulders. In the back seat, his 6-year-old daughter Lily slept soundly, her small body curled against the window. Her dark curls framed her pale face, and her chest rose and fell with the rhythm of innocence. She had begged to come with him today, her voice a soft plea he couldn't refuse. Jack smiled faintly at the memory, though it faded as his thoughts drifted to the reason he was here, a job fixing an old cabin in the woods. It was decent pay, enough to chip away at the mounting medical bills for Lily's rare condition, but it wouldn't be enough. It never was. The truck rolled to a stop. In front of the cabin, a weathered structure nestled among the pines. Its wooden beams sagged like tired bones. The roof was patched with missing shingles, and the porch steps groaned under their own weight. Overgrown vines snaked up the walls, giving it an air of abandonment. Yet there was a quiet beauty to it, a whisper of stories hidden within its cracks. Jack cut the engine and leaned over to gently shake Lily awake. "We're here, sweetheart," he said, his voice rough but tender. "You can play outside while I work, but stay close, okay?" Lily blinked awake, her hazel eyes sparkling with curiosity. "Okay, Daddy," she chirped, scrambling out of the truck. Her boots crunched on the gravel as she darted toward a cluster of wildflowers, her laughter echoing through the stillness. Jack unloaded his tools, hammer, nails, a battered toolbox that had seen better days, and set up his ladder. Against the cabin's side, he'd always been good with his hands, a skill that became his lifeline after his wife Sarah passed away 3 years ago. Cancer had taken her swiftly, leaving Jack to navigate the wreckage of grief while raising Lily alone. Every nail he drove, every board he fixed was for her, for the little girl who deserved more than he could give. The cabin door creaked open, and a woman stepped out, pulling Jack from his thoughts. She was in her late 50s with silver hair swept into a loose bun and piercing blue eyes that seemed to cut through the dusk. She wore a simple gray dress, and a delicate locket hung around her neck, glinting faintly in the fading light. There was an elegance to her, a quiet strength that belied her reclusive surroundings. "You must be Jack," she said, her voice soft yet commanding, like a river flowing over smooth stones. "I'm Eleanor Grayson. Thank you for coming." Jack wiped his hand on his jeans and shook hers, feeling the surprising firmness of her grip. "Pleasure to meet you, ma'am. I'll start on the roof today." Eleanor nodded, her gaze lingering on him for a moment before shifting to Lily, who was now twirling in the grass. "Take your time. If you need anything, let me know." As Jack climbed the ladder, he couldn't shake the odd sensation that Eleanor's eyes held something familiar, a flicker of recognition he couldn't place. He brushed it off, focusing on the rhythmic thud of his hammer against the shingles. Lily, meanwhile, had wandered closer to the cabin, her curiosity drawn to the mysterious woman. "Hi," she said shyly, peering up at Eleanor. "I'm Lily. Do you live here all by yourself?" Eleanor knelt to her level, a warm smile softening her features. "Yes, I do. It's peaceful out here. Would you like to see inside?" Lily's face lit up. "Can I, Daddy?" Jack glanced down from the roof, hesitating. Eleanor's kindness seemed genuine, and something in her demeanor put him at ease. "Sure, but don't touch anything, okay?" The interior of the cabin was a stark contrast to its rugged exterior. A stone fireplace crackled in the corner, casting a golden glow over wooden furniture worn smooth by time. Shelves lined the walls, brimming with books, seashells, and faded photographs. The air smelled of cedar and old paper, a comforting blend that wrapped around them like a blanket. Eleanor showed Lily a carved wooden bird, its wings spread as if ready to take flight, and an ancient typewriter that clacked when Lily pressed its keys. Jack watched through the window as he worked, a faint smile tugging at his lips. Lily's giggles mingled with Eleanor's gentle explanations, and for a moment the weight on his chest lightened. Over the next few days, Jack transformed the cabin. He replaced the roof's missing shingles, reinforced the sagging porch, and painted the exterior a crisp white that gleamed against the forest backdrop. Each afternoon, when the sun dipped low, Eleanor invited him and Lily inside for tea and oatmeal cookies still warm from the oven. They'd sit by the fire, the crackle of logs filling the silences between their words. Jack found himself opening up to Eleanor in a way he hadn't with anyone since Sarah's death. He told her about Lily's love for drawing, her endless questions about the world, and the quiet terror that gripped him every time he thought about her illness. Eleanor listened intently, her blue eyes softening with empathy. "You're a good father, Jack," she said one evening, her voice barely above a whisper. "Lily's lucky to have you." Jack stared into his tea, the steam curling upward like a ghost. "I try, but it's hard, you know. Some days I don't know if I'm enough." Eleanor reached across the table, resting her hand on his. "You're more than enough. I can see it in the way she looks at you." Her touch was warm, steadying, and Jack felt a lump rise in his throat. He didn't know why her words hit so deep, but they did. On the 5th day, while Jack sanded the porch beams, Lily slipped into the cabin's attic, her small frame disappearing up the narrow stairs. She returned moments later, clutching a dusty photo album to her chest. "Daddy, look what I found," she called, her voice bright with excitement. "There's pictures of a baby and a lady who looks like Miss Eleanor." Jack set down his sandpaper and took the album, his fingers brushing against its worn leather cover. He flipped it open and his breath caught. The photographs were old, their edges yellowed, but the images were clear. A young woman, Eleanor unmistakably in her teens, cradling a newborn. Her blue eyes shone with a mix of joy and sorrow, and the baby, swaddled in a blanket, reached up with a tiny hand. Something about that hand, that face, stirred a memory Jack couldn't grasp. Eleanor stepped into the room, her face draining of color as she saw the album. "Where did you find that?" she asked, her voice trembling. "In the attic," Lily said, oblivious to the tension. "Is that you, Miss Eleanor?" Eleanor nodded slowly, her hands shaking as she reached for the album. "Yes, that's me. And my son. He was taken from me when he was just a baby." Jack's heart pounded in his chest, a deafening thud that drowned out the crackling fire. He'd been adopted as an infant, his adoptive parents telling him only that his birth mother was a teenager who couldn't keep him. They'd never known her name, and Jack had never had the resources to search. But now, staring at this photograph, a wild, impossible thought took root. "Eleanor," he said, his voice hoarse, "what was your son's name?" "Michael," she whispered, tears welling in her eyes. "But I don't know what they named him after the adoption." The room tilted beneath Jack's feet. His birth name had been Michael. He'd changed it to Jack in his teens, a rebellion against the unknown past that haunted him. I think I might be your son," he said, the words spilling out like a confession. Eleanor gasped, her hand flying to her mouth. "What? How could that be?" Jack stumbled through his story, his adoption, the scant details he'd pieced together over the years. Dates, places, the agency's name. It all aligned with Eleanor's account. Her tears fell freely, now, and she sank onto the couch, clutching the album to her chest. "It can't be," she murmured, her voice breaking. "After all these years?" But it was. The truth crashed over them like a tidal wave, raw and undeniable. Jack knelt beside her, his own eyes burning, and pulled her into his arms. "It's okay, Mom," he said, the word tasting strange and sacred. "I'm here now." Eleanor sobbed into his shoulder, her fingers gripping his shirt as if he might vanish. "I never thought I'd see you again," she cried. "I thought I'd lost you forever." Jack held her tighter, his own tears soaking into her silver hair. Lily watched from the corner, her small face creased with confusion and wonder, sensing the gravity of the moment. Hours later, after Lily had fallen asleep in the guest room, Jack and Eleanor sat by the fire, the embers glowing like tiny stars. Eleanor cradled her tea, her hands still unsteady. "There's so much I need to tell you," she said, her voice thick with emotion. "About why I gave you up, what happened after." Jack nodded, leaning forward. "I want to know everything." "I was 16 when I had you," she began, her gaze distant. "My parents were strict, ashamed of me. They said I'd ruin my life if I kept you, that I was too young to be a mother. They forced the adoption, took you from me without a choice. I begged them, screamed until my voice gave out, but they didn't care. Losing you broke me." Jack's chest tightened, imagining the terrified girl she'd been. "What did you do after?" "I ran away," Eleanor said, her voice steadying. "I couldn't stay with them. I worked whatever jobs I could find. Cleaning, waitressing, until I scraped enough to get through school. I studied science, poured my pain into it. Years later, I invented a renewable energy system that changed the industry. It made me a billionaire, but money couldn't replace you. I searched for you, Jack, hired investigators, but the records were sealed. I retreated here to escape the emptiness." Jack reached for her hand, squeezing it gently. "I had a good life with my adoptive parents. They loved me, gave me everything they could. But I always wondered about you, felt this hole I couldn't fill." Eleanor's tears glistened in the firelight. "I prayed you were happy. Seeing you now, the man you've become, it's more than I ever dared hope." Jack smiled, his own eyes wet. "And I've got Lily, who's already crazy about her grandma." Eleanor laughed softly, a sound of pure joy. "She's a miracle. I can't believe I have a granddaughter." The weeks that followed were a whirlwind of connection. Eleanor and Lily became inseparable, Eleanor teaching her to identify constellations through the cabin's skylight, showing her how to press wildflowers between book pages, sharing stories of a world Lily could only imagine. Jack watched them, marveling at how naturally they fit together, like pieces of a puzzle he hadn't known was incomplete. But beneath the joy, Jack wrestled with a gnawing fear. Lily's condition, a rare blood disorder, required constant treatment, and the costs were crushing him. He'd sold his wife's wedding ring last month to cover a bill, and still he was drowning. He didn't want to burden Eleanor, not after finding her, but the strain was etched into his face, impossible to hide. One evening, as they sat on the porch, the lake shimmering under a twilight sky, Eleanor spoke up. "Jack, I know you're struggling with Lily's medical bills. Let me help." Jack shook his head, his jaw tightening. "I can't, Eleanor. You've already done so much. I've always made my own way. I don't want to lean on you." Eleanor's eyes softened, but her voice was firm. "You're not leaning. You're my son, and Lily's my granddaughter. I have more money than I'll ever need. Billions sitting in accounts doing nothing. Let me use it to give her the care she deserves, please." Jack looked at her, then out at Lily, who was skipping stones across the water, her laughter a melody against the rustling leaves. He thought of the sleepless nights, the endless worry, the fear of losing her too. Eleanor's offer wasn't charity. It was love, a lifeline he couldn't refuse. "Okay," he said finally, his voice breaking. "Thank you, Mom." Eleanor's face lit up and she pulled him into a hug, her tears dampening his shirt. "You don't know what it means to hear you say that." With Eleanor's resources, Lily's treatment became cutting edge, her prognosis brighter than Jack had dared dream. Specialists flew in, medications arrived without delay, and slowly the color returned to Lily's cheeks. Eleanor didn't stop there. She set up a trust fund for Lily's future, ensuring she'd have every opportunity, every chance to thrive. Jack and Lily moved into the cabin, turning it into a home bursting with life. Jack kept working, taking on projects that sparked his passion, no longer driven by desperation. The forest became their sanctuary, the lake their mirror reflecting a family reborn. One crisp autumn night, they sat together on the porch, bundled in blankets as Lily chased fireflies, her giggles dancing on the breeze. The air smelled of wood smoke and fallen leaves, and the stars above glittered like a promise. Jack turned to Eleanor, his voice quiet. "When I took this job, I thought I was just fixing a cabin. I never imagined it'd fix me too." Eleanor smiled, her hand finding his. Sometimes the smallest kindness, like a stranger's help, can unravel the biggest mysteries and mend the deepest wounds. Jack nodded, his heart swelling with gratitude. As Lily ran back to them, her hands cupped around a glowing firefly, he knew they'd found something rare and unbreakable, a second chance, a family forged in the quiet of the woods. In the stillness of that night, with the cabin's warm light spilling onto the porch and Lily's laughter ringing in his ears, Jack realized that the truest miracles often arrive disguised as ordinary moments, like a single dad fixing a roof, unaware he was rebuilding his life.